Okay, so but I want to slow this down a second. You know, your marriage blows up unexpectedly, which is a huge emotional event, and work couldn't numb the pain. And so you decide to blow up work too and do something entirely different. Like, I'm lost here. Let's burn every bridge at the same time and just make it to be a firestorm.
Yeah, I don't know how the thought process happened, but it was just like, you know, I've got a lot of stress with, you know, my divorce. Let's make more stress and have a career change, and then let's have more stress and move states.
Right. I mean, like all that. What's the time frame that this all happened?
Within a couple months.
Hi, I'm Jenn Drummond. Welcome to Seek Your Summit. As a mom, a business owner, and the first female to climb the 7-second summits, I realize that the mountains we climb are a part of our success. And it is up to us to go beyond that success into a life of significance. Hello. Welcome back to the Seek Your Summit podcast. We are back to interview format, which is super exciting because today I have my friend Danny on the episode. Danny and I met a few years ago. He's been helping me with a bunch of content. He's got a lot of other things going on in his life, and I convinced him to join me today. So thank you, Danny.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yay. Yay. Okay, so I met you from a girlfriend who said you could come up and film. We kind of started filming stuff, and you've been on a career path, shifting here and there or whatever. So, but it even started before me. So talk to me about what did you go to school for?
So I went to school originally for just a random general business stuff. And then I stopped going to class and got kicked out of school.
Imagine that. Okay, sons listening to your mom's podcast right now, go to class or you'll get kicked out of school.
You definitely need to go. I don't know why they didn't keep me there, but I guess
they didn't give me an option.
Yeah, no. I was like, I'm paying for it. You don't want my money, but
nice.
Yeah, no. So yeah, originally my whole goal, I think in school, I was like, you know what? I think I want to be an orthodontist, and there's a lot of schooling with that. And I knew that, but I also hated schooling. And so it definitely didn't work out.
But why an orthodontist of all things?
It's a random thing too. Yeah. So when I got braces, I just loved my orthodontist. He was just such an awesome person. And he kind of convinced me that I wanted to be an orthodontist. And so I was his first patient and stuff. And then I'd kind of hang out and stuff like that there. And yeah, I don't know. It was just something about that. And then growing up, I always started looking at people's teeth after having braces and stuff like that. But yeah, I've kind of wanted to do several different things, but that was what I thought was okay, maybe I'll do this pathway, but definitely didn't work out.
Okay, so I went to school to be a doctor.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. I was convinced because it was the only successful profession that I knew and still saw the person at soccer games or something, right? So I'm okay, I'm going to be pre-med and be a doctor. I'm in college. And my chemistry teacher pulls me aside. And he's like, hey, Jen, you want to talk for a few minutes? I'm like, sure. He's like, hey, are you still thinking of being a doctor? I'm like, yeah, I think so. He's like, I just want you to think about this a little bit. I'm like, okay. He's like, do you know anybody in this classroom? Yeah, no, I don't. He goes, do you know where the library is on campus? And I'm like, are you being silly right now? And he's like, no, seriously. I'm like, yeah, I don't use the library. He's like, I just want to let you know that the kids in this classroom and the library are where you're going to spend the next 10 years of your life if you decide that you want to be a doctor. And he's like, I just think that it's worth you looking at your personality and things that you like to do. And maybe there's a different alignment that lines up better. I was so mad at him at first. I'm like, I'll be a doctor just to show you. And then I thought about it and I went to my business law teacher and we chatted one night and I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'm not meant to be a doctor. And I stopped.
It's so funny how in life you think you're going to go one way and all of a sudden, life takes you somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's basically what happened to me. When I got kicked out of college, I went back home, had no idea what I wanted to do. And at that time, one of my friends was like, hey, dude, you should work at T-Mobile with me. So I worked at T-Mobile for a little bit, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And then got into law enforcement.
Law enforcement.
Yeah.
But why law enforcement of all things?
Yeah. So growing up, my dad was a cop. And so I kind of grew up around that lifestyle. And that was something I always wanted to do. So I wanted to be an orthodontist. I wanted to be a cop. But when I was really little, that's something that I want to do. I told my dad all the time, I was like, I want to be a cop. And he's like, no, don't be a cop. But when I moved back to Boise, from school. And when I was working at T-Mobile, got married, and then I realized I needed to do something to be able to provide. And
wait. Got married.
Oh, yeah.
Like, got married. Like, oh, just this little detail.
Yeah, just a little
okay, so
detail.
you're working, you dropped out of college.
Yeah.
You're working at T-Mobile.
Yeah.
You have a girlfriend and you get married because it was the time to get married, or like what, like the evolution of things?
Yeah.
Or?
So I thought she was the one. And so I was like, this is the right time to get married. Got married, and then realized I needed to be able to provide a little bit more than just T-Mobile.
Okay.
And so when I was talking to my dad, he was like, hey, you should work at the sheriff's office. You don't need a degree. And it's something where it's like they've got great benefits, they've got great retirement. And so I was like, it's something I've always wanted to do. And so I just applied, and yeah, I became a cop.
Okay. All right. Don't you have to go through training for that?
Yeah.
Do they have
so
like boot camp type
it's
thing?
not just like applying and stuff like that. But so like, I was at the sheriff's office for about 4 years. And so with that, I kind of did different things within the sheriff's office. I worked in the jail for a little bit, probably most of my career. And then at the very end of it, then I switched over to patrol.
Okay.
And yeah, so it was just like it was definitely a different career going from.
What made you switch from jail to patrol?
That was like the main goal, was to go to patrol. So jail was great because I learned a lot of experience on how to communicate with different people, as well as a lot of the people that are going to be in jail I'm going to be probably dealing with outside. And so it just helps you build rapport. It helps you understand how they think and stuff. And so one of the things my dad always told me, he said that the best deputies out on patrol started off in the jail. And so that's kind of where, I started working there. And then for patrol, you had to have a 2-year degree. I didn't have a degree, but the way around that was if you worked in the jail for 2 years, then you could switch over to patrol. And so that was like my whole process was, I'm going to start in the jail, I'm going to gain experience, and then I'm going to go to patrol. And then that would be kind of my career. And then I kind of wanted to do stuff like SWAT. I wanted to do stuff K9. Yeah. Just kind of going around in different places like that.
Okay. So what made you decide, I don't want to do this anymore? Because you shifted. Yeah.
So that's kind of like the funny thing about like, your life changes and you don't realize it's going to go a certain way. So long story short, when I was in patrol, my wife at the time asked for a divorce.
Okay.
And so because
were you having trouble? Like this was this was coming, or this was a shock?
It was a big surprise to me. So I woke up and she asked for a divorce, and I was like super shocked because I thought everything was going great. Like we had taken couples pictures 2 months before. We were still going over to her family's house. We were hanging out and stuff. And yeah, like she told me that she wanted a divorce. And when I was trying to figure out why, all she would say is, I want to be happy. And so for me, it was like, it wasn't making sense. Later on, I found out that she was cheating on me. And so with that, I was pretty wrecked. I didn't really know what I wanted to do in life, in the sense of like, what am I supposed to do from here? Just because I had this whole big thing happen. And so being at work, going to calls and stuff like that, I was fine. But it was anytime that something wasn't happening, I was getting super anxious, just because that's where my mind would wander and start thinking and started playing scenarios and stuff. But that's what became super hard for me. And while I was out on patrol, some like thoughts about things that I had wanted to do previously were, I had always wanted to do video work. So it's like, I know I've, orthodontist, cop, video stuff, but
did you do video stuff on the side?
Yeah, so I had done I had shot weddings and stuff like that. But growing up, I always had a camera, and I remember like doing reports on, I wanted to be a filmmaker. I wanted to go to Hollywood and direct movies and stuff. And my parents told me, that's great, you probably won't make it. And so I was just like, it was something where I'm like, they're always telling me, you need to be like a doctor, you need to be a law enforcement, you need to be a firefighter, you need to be something like with that. And so I kind of never looked into it after my parents kind of told me that. But yeah, so it was like, I do some certain projects here and there, but they would say, yeah, that's great, you can make some money, but it's not going to be ever consistent.
Okay, so but I want to slow this down a second. So you have this, like, you know, your marriage blows up unexpectedly, which is a huge emotional event, and work couldn't numb the pain. And so you decide to blow up work too and do something entirely different. Like, I'm lost here. Let's burn every bridge at the same time and just make it to be a firestorm.
Yeah, I don't know how the thought process happened, but it was just like, you know, I've got a lot of stress with, you know, my divorce. Let's make more stress and have a career change, and then let's have more stress and move states.
Right. I mean, like, all that. Like, what's the time frame that this all happened?
Within a couple months.
Within a couple months.
Yeah, within a couple months. So it was like I was struggling at work with if there was ever free time, and so at first I talked to my sergeant and I was telling him kind of what was going on, and he was saying to take off some time. And so I took off some time, came out to Utah, met one of my friends out here, and he does video work. And so I was kind of telling him, like, I would love to do this full time and stuff. And he's like, you should just go for it. You know, you don't have any responsibilities. You don't.
How old were you at this time?
This was 2021.
Yeah, it's okay.
Like 3 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when we were talking and he was saying like I should make the jump, I should just go for it, I started thinking about that more and more, because I was like, I don't have any responsibility at home. So I'm like, you know, I have this devastating thing that happened, but now I'm trying to find like positives. I'm trying to find anything positive. And the biggest thing was I don't have a responsibility. So if I decided to, you know, pursue doing video and it doesn't work out, I can always come back. And plus I'm not putting pressure on like a spouse or anything like that. And so,
and you have T-Mobile in your background, and they're everywhere.
T-Mobile. So I got T-Mobile, I got, you know, law enforcement. So for me, I decided to just full send it. I talked to my sergeant and told him that I was quitting and that I was going to pursue this. And then I moved states. And
wait, and like, you can't, like, because here's what happens. People who are listening to this episode right now, some of them might be in that spot where they're wondering, do I stay? Do I go? Do I burn the boat? Do I, you know, all that thing. So you're skipping over that part, but there had to be something where it was like, okay, it's already blown up anyways. Yeah. So there's nothing else to lose at this point. So I might as well go for the pipe dream that I've kind of had in my back burner and just see what happens, because I'm starting over in like my life from this relationship side. So why not start the life over everywhere and hope something grabs? Yeah.
I mean, like, I started over with almost everything. It's like I sold my house. I moved out here. I went from like a king size bed to a twin bed in an apartment, like a super small apartment. And I started over. But I think the big thing for me was I was also looking at the like responsibilities. Like if I had kids and if I had a spouse, I probably wouldn't have obviously changed careers. But if I had kids, I'd have to think about that too. Right. And so it was, for me, it was just the right thing where I don't have any responsibility. I don't have to see her anymore. I don't have to stay in contact for kids or custody and stuff like that. And so I had an opportunity to pursue it. And worst case scenario, I still had that doorway to come back, because when I talked to my sergeant, he said, if it doesn't work out, come back.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't just like completely like, yeah, I full sent it. I left, I moved, but I still had the opportunity, if it didn't work out, to come back.
Okay. And so you had anxiety when you were at the station and doing the patrol work. When you did the full send, where was your anxiety level when you came here?
Looking at it now, I still always had it.
Okay.
But I kept myself so busy that I didn't have time to think about it. But it was any time that I had a little bit of free time, that's where I was anxious. And so I would just fill it up with doing other things. So it was constantly reaching out to people to go shoot for them. I was trying to do free stuff for anyone, just to get out of the house, trying to get experience, trying to build a portfolio. And so my first year, I probably was getting about 4 hours of sleep. And part of it
was
a day, 4 hours.
That doesn't hurt your anxiety at all.
Yeah, that wasn't bad.
That doesn't feed it.
No, but it was like, part of it was like, like I couldn't sleep fully through a night. And then also I was just constantly going from one shoot to another. So I'd get done with shooting something, I'd get home, and as soon as I'd laid my head on the pillow, like just take a nap, someone would text me, hey, do you want to come do this? And I'd get up and say, I'm down. And so that was kind of like my phrase of like my year one is I would say, I'm down. I'm always down. Okay. And that helped me gain experience. That helped me network. That helped me, really get out there. It helped me to not have to worry about my anxiety, which eventually I had to deal with.
I'm ready for that. Like, I'm going to let you play this story out because we all have that, right? Like we have this fear that can manifest as anxiety or depression or, however it shows up for somebody else that's listening today. And our tendency is to busy ourselves enough that we don't have to face it.
Yep.
And, it looks different for all of us.
Yeah.
I have 7 kids. It's really easy to hide in busyness, but it's actually promoted by society. Like, oh, you're such a good mom.
Yeah.
Little, like what's going on in here behind the scenes. So so you used it to your advantage.
Yeah.
Which I think a lot of us do. And you built yourself a reputation.
Yep.
And keep going.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I think I learned it from my dad, like the working part.
Okay.
And he worked so many hours. And when it was his day off, he was out training or he was doing some other, because he worked in law enforcement. He was a cop and his days off, he'd be at the shooting range. He would be doing some type of training stuff. He'd go to different classes. And so he was always gone. And so I learned to stay busy. And so for me, it was just so easy that like for me with pursuing this, I just learned I can stay busy. The busier I am, the less time I have to think about this. And it worked where I thought like I had a lot of great opportunities from it. But it was just anytime I had the free time, that's where I was anxious. That's where my mind started turning a lot.
And where would it go or what would it do?
It would go to a lot of different things. At first there was a lot of struggle with understanding my divorce because it was so quick. My divorce, it went from her saying that she wanted a divorce and she was gone within 2 hours. And then I hadn't seen her, and I didn't see her until we signed papers, and then I've never seen her since. So it was such a quick change in my life that with that, I struggled with trust issues. I struggled with confidence. I struggled with wanting to ever be in a relationship again, just because I'm like, I thought to me when we got, like in my mind, I was thinking, okay, if we're married, like we're good. Like we're in this forever, but obviously,
or at least working through it.
Yeah.
Being like, okay, this isn't working. Can we go meet with somebody or can we solve this problem? Not, hey, just kidding.
Yeah. And so for whatever reason, it messed with me and I just thought I was a bad husband. And so I was just like, I'm not going to be good enough for someone. Like maybe I am too blunt with conversation. Maybe I think so differently. Part of it, I was like, maybe it has to do with me being in law enforcement and me ending up feeling numb with a lot of the things. Just with dealing with certain things, you start to kind of numb out a little bit with your emotions. And so I was like, maybe it's my communication and how I think with that. But so for me, it was just, there was a lot of confidence issues. And I felt confident with work, but then like, as soon as I had free time, all of a sudden I was thinking about like, okay, what are my goals in life? I do want to have a family, but now it's the scariest thing because I wanted to have that. That's why I got married and it wrecked me. And so really, I struggled with a lot of that stuff until probably the beginning of last year. 2023. Okay.
What shifted in 2023?
2023, I realized one, I was turning 30.
It's a big, I know those banner birthdays, they mess with you a little bit.
They do.
Like I'm speaking living proof of that.
It messed with me. I was like, wow, I'm turning 30. Like, where am I going in life? Like, I know I have my career, but what else am I trying to do with my life? And I heard a quote and it was, a man has 2 lives. And he realizes that the second one starts when he realizes he only has one. And for me, as I was turning 30, I was like, okay, I need to like take a step back and look at myself, look at my life. And I was like, what are my goals? And obviously my goal was I want to be a husband and I want to be a father. So I'm like, okay, now if the perfect woman showed up in my life, would I be ready for her? And I realized I wasn't. And so I kind of figured out, what do I need to do to be ready for that person if they showed up today? And so for me, I realized I needed to work on my physical, my mental, my spiritual.
Okay.
And I think that's like for everyone, that everyone should work on their physical, mental, spiritual, whatever that may be, whatever, route that you want to do that. I think that is very important. For me, I realized if I'm going to be a father, if I'm going to be a husband, I'm the captain of the ship and I need to be able to steer the ship and I need to know where it's going. So yeah, the very first thing I realized I needed to do, I was like, okay, I am out of shape. I need to take care of myself. I've been getting, 4 hours of sleep a night. I need to do something. And so the very first thing I decided to do was start going to the gym. And so I went to the gym every single day for, I think it was 4 months straight where I didn't miss a single day.
Wow.
And then after that, it was like 5-6 days a week.
Okay.
But yeah, so I was doing that. And as I started working on my physical, I realized I had more energy. Because that was like my biggest thing. It was like, I was just so tired to like think about a lot of other things, to work on my mental, to work on my spiritual. It was, I needed to gain more energy. And so as I worked on my physical, I started gaining more energy. And then I realized I had the capacity to work on my mental. And that's where I started getting into running. And yeah, that I went from beginning of last year to, I couldn't run a mile at all. And I finally started running just little by little. And then I got to the point where I could run 3.5 miles, then 5 miles, ran a half marathon, and then ran a marathon. And that was all within that year.
Yeah.
And so that was a crazy thing too, is being able to do that, working on your mental. And
how was running working on your mental?
Yeah. So I think, well, one for me, I hate running. Like, I know I run still. I still hate running. Like
every time you hate running?
Every time I complain about it. Like when I had roommates, you ask them, I would sit there I'd be looking at my shoes. I'm like, I don't want to run. I don't want to run. I don't want to go outside. It'd be a nice day out. I'm like, no, I just want to relax. And so it was overcoming those mental battles. So for some people that struggle with depression, the mental battle might be getting out of bed. The mental battle I was having was, I don't want to run. And I realized if I could force myself to run when I didn't want to run, that means I could overcome other mental battles throughout my life. And so struggling with anxiety, it helped teach me that I could overcome anxiety. I could fight through the day, because there were times where I'm like, I just want to sit at home. There's times where I didn't want to get out of bed.
So anxiety for you, would it show up as just doing nothing would be the solution? Or how did anxiety feel?
Anxiety to me felt like I was, like something was wrong. My heart was pounding. My mind is spinning like 1,000 miles an hour. It felt like as if, almost like when you're a kid and you did something and your parents are going to find out and you're just waiting for them to come talk to you and you feel like you are going to go to jail kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's what anxiety feels like to me.
Okay.
Where your heart is just pounding and something is wrong. So you can be
sitting there and your heart will just start pounding.
And so those were things that would happen, in between shoots, where it's like we get done with a shoot and as soon as we're done and I don't have anything else, like on the drive home, also my heart just starts pounding and I am just anxious and stressed. Aww. And so, yeah, for me, I was like, I need to figure something out. And I started off with running, and it didn't fix everything, but it helped me understand that I can overcome things.
So when anxiety shows up for you now, what's the self-talk, or what do you do to navigate that situation? Since
then, I have started going to therapy once a week.
Okay.
And so therapy helps. I won't say that it's made it perfect. Now, a lot of things I have to actually take a minute and just kind of look around. I'm like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Like everything's okay. And I start having like a list of gratitude of different things.
So you start your gratitude list.
Yeah. And I think when you start realizing the things that you're thankful for, I think that kind of pushes out a lot of your anxiety.
Okay.
So you can start talking about, for me, it was just little things of like, I'm grateful for my friends. I'm grateful for the ability to run when I don't want to be able to get out of bed, because I know some people struggle with it more. The opportunity to be able to pursue my dream of wanting to do video. And you know, even in a stressful time, I was able to overcome that and find a different career and be happy in that career. So it's a lot of just trying to find little things, even if you're like, you know, I'm thankful that I got out of bed today. Sometimes there's not a lot of things that you can feel thankful for, but
starting with those teeny tiny things.
Yeah.
And then just building that momentum from there.
Yep.
And then I also like how you said, you know, looking at times in the past that you've overcome and just keeping those success stories on speed dial.
Yeah.
You know, I have to do that a lot when I'm in different environments where I'm like, oh goodness, this is getting ahead of me. And I'll be like, oh, but I've done this, but I've done this. Okay, I'm fine. We're good.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting thing because I think a lot of people, especially with social media, they look at people that are overcoming something or pursuing something and they're like, man, I wish I could do that. And they just start thinking, they have all this self-doubt and they think about that these other people don't have these struggles, the same like, you know, anxieties or depression or struggles of or worries about, can I overcome this? And yeah, I think for me, that was something that was, when I was anxious, I would always kind of like, I'd be scrolling through like Instagram and see like all these successful people and it would make me even less motivated because I was like, yeah, I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to be able to make it. But I think a lot of people need to not compare themselves. I think that's a big thing too, is when you start comparing yourself, you'll get anxiety and you'll feel less motivated.
How egotistical am I when I see other people? I'm like, if that person can do it, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
I'm like,
somebody just became Instagram famous because of what?
Yeah.
Like, I'm making this game way too hard. We should be able to be just fine.
For me, it really depends on like my mood.
Okay.
Like if I'm anxious and then I start scrolling, I'm like,
done.
What am I doing? Why am I even trying?
Right.
But like other times where I'm like, I need a little more motivation, I can scroll through and be like, okay, no, I can do this. But yeah, so it really just depends on like my mindset at the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I must be in that arrogant mindset more often than not. But I do remember. I remember being afraid when I was going to have my first son. And I was like, I mean, I read every single parenting book. You know, I research.
Yeah.
When I'm nervous, like my methodology is research and clean. So like I would research, I'd study everything, I'd do whatever. And then finally one day my cousin says to me, and she's like, think of the dumbest person you went to high school with that has a kid. And they did it just fine. I'm sure you'll be fine. And that like changed the entire narrative for me. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Like, why would I think I wouldn't be fine? And it's funny because it's like just the teeniest, tiniest little thing, whatever it is for you or me or whoever's listening today. Like, don't shame yourself for it. Own it and be like, this is a perspective shift.
Yeah.
And those perspective shifts like shift everything.
Yeah. No, that's so funny. Yeah. I'm always worried about, like, that is one thing I'm worried about. And it's funny that you said it like that. Cause I'm like, man, am I going to be a good dad? Like when I am a dad, I don't want to screw up. But yeah, it's funny that you say it that way.
Okay, I have 7 children. Danny's been stuck at my house plenty of times filming. He's going to be a great dad. So any female listening here right now, you've got to catch across the way from me.
We'll put my phone number in the bio.
Yes. Show notes. We've got a phone number. So it's funny.
Yeah, that was kind of like my last year was just like working on the
so lifting, which turned to running, which helped with the mental game.
Yeah.
Therapy was added.
Yep.
Gratitude is one of your tips and strategies to kind of get out of the spin.
Yep.
When you notice you're in it and you realize like, oh, I'm feeding it, you stop that activity and shift to something different that's more productive.
Yeah.
What about spiritual? Because you said spiritual is a
spiritual.
thing.
Yeah. That was one where I didn't know what I believed in at the time. And I think that was a hard thing because I'm like, again, going back to if I'm going to be the captain of the ship, what do I believe in? What am I going to teach my kids and stuff like that? And so I came up with an idea of I'm going to start going to different churches and see if I believe what they're saying and stuff. And the first thing I did was, because I grew up LDS, I decided to go to LDS church, and when I went there, I felt really good about it. And so I've been going ever since. And that's kind of where I'm like, I love a lot of the principles within the church. And so that's kind of where I'm like, I want to be able to teach my kids those things. And so with that, I've just realized for me, as I've gone to church, I've wanted to build my own relationship with God. And so yeah, it's like I have my own personal relationship with him where I, pray every day. I try to keep him more in my mind as I'm going throughout the day. So when I'm struggling with anxiety, if I'm struggling with depression and stuff, I can, say a prayer and try to rely on him more. And so for me, that's helped me. I know some people may believe other things, and that's totally fine. And I think it's just figuring out what you believe in, figure out what works for you, and making sure to have that spiritual peace in your life. So, but I mean, since then, I feel like my anxiety has dropped off significantly.
Just having somebody in your corner.
Yeah.
Right? And understanding like there was a creator that created me.
Yeah.
And so I don't think he'd create me depressed.
Yep.
Right? So how do I hand that over and
Yeah.
say, just kidding, that's not a feeling that I want to have? That's interesting. I like too how the big birthday allowed you to just pause and say, okay, who am I and who do I want to become? And where's those gaps?
Yep.
And what do I need to do to fill those in so that I can start stepping in to this man that I want to show up for?
Yeah. I think a lot of times in life we get so used to doing our everyday routines that I think it's great to do a check-in with yourself and say, what do I want? And am I on that right path? And if I'm not, what changes do I need to make in my life to get on that path?
And what do you suggest to somebody who's listening and saying like, oh, I do want to make a change? It's hard to make change.
Yeah. Like,
what did you do that made it easier?
I think the biggest thing was before it's like I would go to the gym every so often, but it's like I couldn't stay on a routine, and it was because I didn't have my goal in mind. I know some people were like, I want to lose weight. I'm like, that's great. What is the purpose of losing weight? Do you want to look better? Do you want to feel better? For me, again, my goal was I want to be a husband and a father. And how do I do that? I need to be physically ready, mentally ready, and spiritually ready. And so I looked at it that way and saying, okay, I need to show up then. I need to show up to the gym. I need to go to the gym so that I have more energy. And so that's kind of what helped me. And it wasn't like I went to the gym and all of a sudden I was just like, lifting tons of weights and just, doing super well. It was, I would say, okay, I have to go to the gym every single day. My bare minimum is to walk on a treadmill for 30 minutes. And so it was building the habit of going or showing up every single day. And so I think that's kind of what people need to do is set some realistic expectations. I think a lot of people, they'll go very hard like the very first day at the gym,
right?
And then they're just wrecked, and then they don't want to go after that, or they're like, "Oh, well, I'm too sore. I'll go the day after," and then you're already losing. And so I think it's just showing up and having a bare minimum to do, and then just setting that up as a routine. And as it's part of your routine, it's almost like once you get to the gym, you're like, okay, now I'm at the gym, I might as well lift some weights, and so that will eventually come. But it's more of just show up at the gym.
Yeah, no, I like that. I know for me, I always think of it as something times 0 is nothing.
Yep.
Right. So as long as I can do 1 rep, 1 times something is better than 0 times something.
Yeah.
And so whenever I'm training for something, I need to have like that bare minimum. It gives you flexibility to honor where you're at today, but gives you the habit and the discipline of, hey, I'm still showing up for myself. It might not just be 100% day. It might be a 20% day, but 20% is better than 0.
Yeah. And then you're also training for something too.
Yes.
So that helps a little bit more. So it's like for me, this year I've set it up where I have 3 Spartan races, 2 marathons, a half marathon. And so I have these certain...
He started running last year.
Yeah, I started running last year.
So maybe he got into it.
Yeah. No, but like I set those up and I didn't want to do them this year, but I set it up so that I'm like, okay, I have a schedule that I have to keep running. Or else it's, hey, I already ran a marathon. I don't need to do it anymore. Right. And then I'd stop running, get out of shape again. So for me, I'm like, okay, I need to set these goals of, hey, the marathon I signed up for, and it's on this date. I need to start preparing for it.
Right.
So yeah, it's like, I think that's what a lot of people need to do as well. Like find something fun to prepare for. Marathon's not that fun at all.
But when you're done, isn't it fun when you're done?
Yeah, it's fun when you're done.
That's why they let you sign up for another race at the end of the one you just finished, because you're riding off all those endorphins.
I'm like, I'm not gonna do that ever again. Like when I was running my marathon, I was like, why did I sign up for this? At first I thought I was doing great. Like I definitely did not prepare for it.
Oh, awesome.
I had ran like the most I had ran before that was a half marathon, and I did that one time, and that was like a month prior. I was like, oh, I ran a half marathon easily. I've got this. And yeah, I got to about mile 16 and felt it pretty badly. And yeah.
How'd you push through?
I don't know. That was a mental game in itself. And I think that's the one part I like about the marathon is the mental part.
Yeah.
Is because you are battling with yourself, because the whole time my body and my mind is telling me, just ask someone for a ride back to the finish line. Like, you're done. You can't do it anymore. And so there was like all these emotions of like feeling really good and all of a sudden feeling really bad and feeling sad. And like, I'm like having all these emotional thoughts about just everything going on in my life. And yeah, it was just more of, I'm seeing other people still running. And so I'm still just following them, even though like I'm done. But then I'd see a car drive by and I'm like, oh, I should just put out my hand and ask them to take me. But I don't know. It was just, I don't know how to explain it. It's just, yeah, you just keep running.
The environment matters. Yeah. I mean, you have to set yourself up for an environment of success. And if you were running by yourself, you would have stopped.
I would have definitely quit.
Right. But you're in a race. People are cheering you on. It's just enough gap to be like, oh, I don't want to disappoint everybody around me. Right. So I'm going to continue, and you figure out where you can dig deep. I know for me, when I was into running, mile 8 was my hardest.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but mile 7, I was like, mile 8. I mean, I literally had to change my play mix on my tape so that when it played, that would be my favorite song to kind of get me through that hard part. And nowadays, when I'm doing something, if something's hard, I'm like, oh, this is my mile 8. This is like, I'll be fine. Like, once I get to mile 10, I feel good again. But for some reason, mile 8's hard. And when you do these things consistently, it allows you to identify like where you get stuck and realize that just because you're stuck at this moment doesn't mean you're stuck for that next so many miles. Like, you can get through it. Another thought comes in, another wave of energy shows up somehow. And
no, I totally agree. I think that's, you know, I just got done saying I hate running, but the one part I love about running is it teaches you can get through anything. Like, you, just like your mile 8, you're getting stuck at that mile 8, but you're pushing past that. And as you push past that, it reinforces to yourself that you can overcome other things in life. And it might not be just running. It's other things where maybe you're going through something with your kids or financially or something, but it's just, it helps you build that strength and that confidence that I can overcome whatever I am faced with.
Yeah. So I ran for a while and then I stopped running because I got into mountains, and one of my daughters is trying out for track. So on vacation, she's like, let's go running again. I'll tell you what, lacing up those shoes for the first time is so hard.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, because you mentally want to be back where you left off.
Yeah.
Physically, your body's like, ha, 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 you gave up this sport. You're going to have to earn your way back in.
You feel your lungs just burning.
Oh, it was like muscles that I don't use, I guess. I have no idea. It was just one of those things where I'm like, oh, I'm so glad she's 11 and I can run this mile at like 10 minutes and be like, oh, it's my daughter.
Yeah.
It was my daughter. That's why we ran 10-minute miles. Oh, it's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Running
is just that's an interesting one. I hate it. I hate it.
I love that you hate it and that you force yourself to do it, right? It's like the ice baths, but yours is a longer
ice bath. That's a whole nother thing. Cold water, I will sit there and look at it for about 45 minutes and then like dip my toe and I'm like, do I really want to do this? And I'll spend like another 45 minutes waiting and then finally kind of do it.
And then you'll go in.
And I'm like, okay, now I can do it.
The ice all melted. We're good.
Yeah, that one takes me forever. That's like my next running thing I need to start doing.
The ice bath.
Like, I want to find things that like I just don't want to do and then just keep doing that to like help strengthen like my mental toughness.
My we do hard things speech, baby. Yep. Yes. Keep finding something that's difficult and get used to doing difficult things.
Yeah. I think everyone needs to find something that's hard and just do it. Because it's like, just kind of like what we've been talking about. The more that you can strengthen your mental toughness, the easier everything else that life throws at you, it's going to be so much easier.
No, I agree. Yes. I mean, I live it all the time. my mental toughness is like, how many trips can I fit into 1 month
Yeah.
and still feel like I'm standing at the end of the day?
That was wild. When you're telling me, I'm like, dang.
Yes.
I couldn't do that.
No, I'm starting to question my own sanity at some points. Someone told me that, like, travel is a trauma response. I'm like, don't go there. It's not. I promise it's not. Okay, so you're 31 now. Do you set goals where you say, okay, by 35, I want this, or 40, I want that? Do you break it up into time frames, or are you just always checking in with yourself saying, I want to be a better me? And what does that look like today?
Yeah, I don't really set any time frame goals, I guess, more than just like this year. So it's like this year I've got goals of certain things that I want to hit, but I haven't set goals being like within 5 years, I want to do this, within 10 years, because I think the one thing for me is I realize how much life can change within, I mean, even within a year, going from not running to running a marathon.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back at the last, 10 years, it's like I went from college, married, divorced, T-Mobile, cop, to doing video stuff. And it can change. And I think for me, it's a lot easier just to set the 1 year goals and then kind of looking at that. But I do multiple check-ins with myself. I try to do it like at least once a month of like, hey, am I on the right path? I have weekly check-ins like on Sundays that I'll figure out, okay, what do I have going on this week? Is it helping with my goals? But then I have like really good self-reflections once a month to figure out, am I really on the right path? And what do I need to change? What do I need to add in my life? What do I need to remove in my life? I think that really does help. And
what's something you removed recently?
Something that I removed, as much as I like watching TV, I've tried removing TV.
Oh, I was hoping you were going to say video games.
Video games. No, video games are fun.
Video games are still there.
Yeah, I love video games. It's definitely a nice way to.
But you cut back TV.
Yeah, cut back TV. And it's like, I love TV because there are a lot of creative people that make different TV shows or movies and stuff. And so for me, I love seeing how they did that. But at the same time, I know that there's better ways to spend my time. And so I've cut back the binging of Netflix and Hulu and stuff and said, okay, what can I replace that with? And so it's been more of preparing for these marathons. So for me, that's been a really good thing. Especially with just watching TV, sometimes I'm like, I have less motivation with my goals.
Yeah.
And I get comfy where I'm like, I'm just going to get some snacks and start eating. And then I'm not going in the right pathway for me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, it's good to be able to recognize that. For me, I decided that I wanted 2024 to be my best year yet.
Yeah.
And so for me to be able to do that, I've been trying to set up one amazing thing each month so that I have 12 amazing experiences that equal to an amazing year. And
this podcast with me was for this month, right? That's what I think.
You won the month of April. We're filming in April. We'll see when this airs. But Danny was April.
Right.
Well, there you go.
Perfect.
You can win that for sure. But yeah, no, it's just that just allows me the flexibility to have some play in the schedule, but then also have things that I'm trying to accomplish and can look back and be like, okay, this is what I focused on this month.
Yeah.
And see what shows up next.
No, I like that. I think a lot of people need to set goals because I think most people have like a general idea where, for example, like when people say, I want to lose weight, I think that it's so generalized that it doesn't put you in the right direction. And I don't think there's a way. I think having like measurable goals is probably the best way. At least for me, it's been the best way where I'm like, okay, I want to be at this spot within a couple months. And so kind of setting that goal. But so it's like, if it is losing weight, then at least put like a number on it. Say, I want to lose 10 pounds within a couple months. But I don't know. I think when it's so generalized, you won't.
Oh yeah. No, I have to be specific too, because then it allows me to, I have that goal operate as the North Star.
Yeah. And
then it just gives me, okay, is this decision going to be me closer to my goal or farther away from my goal? And it just makes things with boundaries and more black and white.
Yep.
And then, doesn't mean I always make the right choice, if I had to be honest with you, but it does give me that direction. And it helps me remember that the goal gives me the direction, but truly it's this journey that we live to get there.
Yeah.
That gives the goal meaning. And so for me, I can get pretty hyper focused and then not stay balanced anywhere else.
Yep.
So I always have to remind myself, is it supposed to be fun? This
Yeah.
is supposed to be fun. Like, how do I make sure this is fun?
Yeah, that's another thing. Like when you're planning goals, also plan fun things.
Yes.
That was one thing I realized this year. Well, it was funny because I was talking to someone and they were like, "Are you going on any trip soon?" I'm like, "I don't think so." And I realized I'm going to Norway like in 12 days, but like I had that planned. So it's like, make sure to plan fun things throughout the year too, so that you have something to look forward to. I think that's another thing where sometimes maybe we're chasing goals and we get just fixated on the goal part. And then we're maybe not having as much fun as we should be because it's like, life is so quick.
Yeah.
That was one thing that I had realized as soon as I turned 30. I was like, wow.
It happened.
Like my 20s went by so fast.
Yes.
So.
Yes. No, I know. I have a decade on you. And I'm like already being like, wait a minute, I have a birthday coming up. This isn't fair. I don't want any more right now. Just keep extending
Let's go do something
them.
fun. We'll go do something fun.
Yes, there we go. Perfect. That'll be my month of May.
Yep.
Excitement. So, yay. All right. So you guys are going to Norway.
Yep.
And you're bringing cameras.
Yes.
With your buddies.
Yep.
And what's the plan?
That's a good question. I think we don't really have a plan. We have a little bit of like an itinerary.
Who's running the show?
Kind of all of us. So this is like what happened at the beginning of the year. We decided that we wanted to kind of get together and plan our yearly goals. So we're like, hey, let's plan out our financial goals, our physical goals, mental goals, spiritual goals. And then as we were planning that stuff out, we were like, we should take a boys trip. And it went from like, we should go to California. And then we ended up going to Norway.
I know. That's a big jump.
It was so random, but like, yeah, it was fun. Like we booked flights right there. And then, we've kind of made an itinerary. I don't know it.
And you're all creators,
yep.
right?
Yeah, we've all worked together and stuff. And so it's been fun. So we'll all be bringing cameras and yeah, I'm excited just to be able to take a trip and relax.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I think it's just gonna be a giggle fest with all you guys for sure.
And it's like, we made it where it's like, we have some things on the list because we're gonna be there for 10 days, but we don't want to have it so jam packed where it's like you're worn out and you need a vacation from your vacation.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the person I am. I don't like to have mine completely scheduled out. I like to be able to have like relaxing days of doing absolutely nothing. So yeah, it's kind of our thing. I don't know. We're going to go hike. We're going to do some cold plunges probably. Okay. And it might take me, 3 hours to do a 2-minute cold plunge, but
let's film that.
Yeah.
Put that on YouTube.
I know. Guy takes 3 hours to do a 2-minute cold plunge.
And his fingers are frozen.
Yeah. I do hard things.
But okay, so in the creative field too, you have been on both sides, right? Like you're doing the editing work, you're doing the camera work. What part do you like better?
Camera work.
Okay.
I think though, like editing's fun. Like if you have a fun project, it's super fun to edit. But I also get antsy and I want to move around. I want to be on set, and being on set's fun because I don't know, there's people rather than it's just you being at a computer editing and hearing the same song over and over and over, because you'll hear that song at least 100 times when you're editing a project. And then you're kind of tired of it. But then so I think I like being on set, being able to run a camera, come up with like the idea of like what we're going to shoot. So
storyboard it all.
Storyboard. Yeah.
Okay. Are you storyboarding your trip to Norway? Or are you guys just freelancing?
Yeah, we're just going to freestyle everything. It's going to be like, yeah. I think we want to do some type of documentary of us like going to Norway, some type of like cool little boys trip documentary. But yeah, we don't have like anything specific. It's just kind of whatever we see.
Okay. Fair.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay. So today it's been kind of fun. We've talked about like where you started, the different pivots that you've been able to take, the discipline that you started to apply to your life, which has allowed you to strengthen the mental, the health, and the spiritual aspects.
Yeah.
And then the importance of accountability just with yourself and with those around you, which has helped you pursue your goals. And then having goals to begin with. And then also making sure that you add fun to the whole mix.
Yeah.
Because this is our one and only life.
It is.
So we need to make sure we're enjoying it. What is something else that you'd like to leave the listener with as advice that you've earned?
Yeah. I think within these last few years, I think as I have also been pursuing like physical, mental, spiritual, the one thing I learned is I'm also too hard on myself when I don't achieve a certain goal. I would set a goal, and I think it's good to set high goals and pursue them. But when I would fail, I was really hard on myself. And so I think one thing is to not be hard on yourself. I think it's good to be honest with yourself when you're not hitting a certain goal and not just letting yourself like, oh, it's whatever. Hold yourself accountable, but don't be so hard on yourself where you are becoming discouraged with yourself. That would be,
how have you been able to implement that?
I think it's a lot of like, when I do it's trying to learn to recognize when you are being hard on yourself. That's the hard part, because it's really just first being aware with it, and then after you're hard on yourself, you kind of like taking a step back, and you're looking at that and being like, okay, do I really need to be hard on myself about this, or can I fix whatever I'm working on, modify something, and then keep pursuing that goal? So I think that's kind of like the biggest thing that I've learned is just don't be so hard on yourself. I think it's great to set big goals.
Being kind to ourselves makes us stronger.
Yeah. You got to definitely love yourself.
Yes.
It's a lot easier if you love yourself.
It is. And that's, I think, all of our journey.
Yep.
Is learning how to love ourselves in all these different environments and all these different circumstances, and understand that they're forming us into who we get to become.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely agree.
Yay. Well, we are filming this episode where Danny works at Film Lab in Salt Lake City. Yep. It's an awesome studio. I highly recommend, if you're in the area, you want to be on this podcast, we'll film here. But if you want to film your own podcast, they do episodes here and edit them and get everything all done for you. So thank you, Film Lab, for having us. And Danny, thanks for all your sharing.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah, pleasure.